Hi, my name is Peter Mosley, and I am the writing specialist for the Center for Academic Performance here at the UNT Health Science Center. I'd like to talk about the basics of making an in-text citation in the latest American Psychological Association, or APA, format. We'll talk about the purpose behind these citations, how to put these citations in your paper, and the difference between citing paraphrases and citing direct quotes. APA formatted in-text citations mark places where you're using another source, and they contain some basic need-to-know information about a source, the author and the date, which is why they're referred to as being in author-date format. Each relatively short in-text citation will correspond to the more complete reference page citation that is at the end of your paper. You'll be including these in-text citations for three major reasons. First, you want to empower the reader to locate the sources you've used to support your points. Second, you don't want to accidentally plagiarize or blur the line between your own statements and those that come from an outside source. And finally, showing that you're using respected sources that you accurately represent can bolster your points. To accomplish these three goals, you'll be marking the places where you're using other sources fairly regularly. The APA advises you to cite 1 to 2 sources for each key point in most writing projects. However, the APA guidelines also state that when your writing focuses on giving an overview of research that has been done on an issue or subject, or on providing a literature review, you should cite more extensively. These more frequent citations are often necessary for using the larger number of sources you'll need to give a robust overview of the current state of research regarding your particular subject. Now that you have a basic idea of what citations are for, let's discuss how your APA in-text citations will look in your paper. There are two types of in-text citations: narrative citations and parenthetical citations. You can choose between these types liberally throughout your writing project. Let's start by looking at how to format narrative citations. You'll use narrative citations when you want the name of the source to be part of the narrative of the sentence, as in Jameson, 2021, showed that the Moderna vaccine was highly effective against COVID-19 infection. This format is called a narrative citation because the author is part of the narration in the sentence. Notice how the date comes right after the last name of the author. Whenever you include the date in an in-text narrative citation, you'll always put that date in parentheses right after the name of the author. Well, what if the source has multiple authors? If you're using a source with 2 authors, you'll use the word "and" between the 2 authors. As you can see, Jason and Smith, 2021, serves as the citation here. But if the source has more than 2 authors, you'll simply use et al. For example, note the Jameson et al. Here. By the way, please note that the period in et al. Comes after the al, not the et. What if the source has a group author that is often abbreviated, like the Centers for Disease Control, or the CDC? You would cite it this way the first time: the Centers for Disease Control, then, in parentheses, CDC, 2021, states that the Moderna vaccine is highly effective against COVID-19 infection. And after introducing the abbreviation, you would write it this way, with CDC followed by 2021 in parentheses. If the organization has no initials, simply use the full name of the organization each time, followed by the year in parentheses. What if you're citing multiple sources right after each other? Well, in that case, you would list the sources this way: Jameson, 2021, Dawson, 2021, and Hinckley, 2020, showed that the Moderna vaccine for COVID-19 stopped infection. Notice how these authors are not in alphabetical order. If you're citing multiple sources in a narrative citation, you can put the authors in whichever order you prefer. Now, as I said earlier, the second type of citation is a parenthetical citation. In this kind of citation, you'll put both the author and date in parentheses after the information you're taking from the source. Here is an example. The Moderna COVID-19 vaccine has been shown to prevent infection, Jameson 2021. As you can see, this parenthetical reference comes in parentheses at the end of the sentence. If a source has two authors who use an ampersand between the two, instead of spelling out "and" like you would in a narrative citation. For example, note Jameson and, with the ampersand, Smith 2021 here. And finally, if a source has three or more authors, you'll use et al., as in the Jameson et al. Here. If the author is an organization, you'll use this format for the first citation if there are initials. Notice how the initials CDC are introduced in brackets. Then, for every citation afterwards, simply use the format below with CDC 2021 in parentheses. Now, if you need to cite multiple sources in a parenthetical reference, you'll need to put them in alphabetical order and separate them with semicolons like this. The Moderna COVID-19 vaccine has been shown to prevent infection. Dawson 2021, Hinckley 2020, and Jameson 2021. Now that we know the basics of in-text citations, let's dig into how to use them in paraphrases and direct quotations. You're paraphrasing when you write someone else's points in your own words. Paraphrasing enables you to accurately reflect the content of a source while smoothly integrating it into the reasoning, tone, and structure of your writing project. Because of these advantages, most readers of most writing projects prefer paraphrases over quotes. Now, when you are writing a long paraphrase, start with either a narrative or parenthetical citation, but you don't have to cite sources every sentence, although it does have to be clear that all the information in your paraphrase is coming from the same source. In some cases, it's easier to tell that you're continuing a discussion on the same source, like when you're discussing the methodology or results of a study, for example. Usually it's obvious that the methods used in the study are found in the study. Take this paraphrase, for example, which is taken from the APA sample paper from the APA website at apastyle.apa.org. As you can see, because the discussion regarding the methodology and the results are clearly from the source and not from the writer's mind, the writer doesn't have to keep citing throughout the paraphrase. However, sometimes, when you're discussing points made in the discussion or conclusion of a study, it can be less clear whether the conclusions you're discussing are your own or from the study. In these cases, you can mention the author of the source without the year or time or two, just to be clear that the conclusions you're discussing are those of the source and not your own. Take this example. Notice how there is no citation for the methodology and results in the second sentence of our example, but the Holden Lund in the third sentence clarifies that these conclusions come from the source, not the writer of the paraphrase. As the text states, Holden Lund concluded that the guided imagery recordings contributed to improved surgical recovery. However, if you're citing multiple sources in a few sentences and paraphrasing each one in a review of literature, you'll need to give a full in-text citation with the author and date every time you mention a point from a source in order to avoid confusion between the sources. Here's an example of this in action. Pause the video and read that example over to get a stronger idea of how often you should cite in these situations. This frequency of citation is common when you're trying to establish an overview or provide background on an issue or subject. So those are the details on how to deal with paraphrases. Now, when it comes to direct quotes, you'll have to add page numbers so that the reader can look up the exact quote and its fuller context. If the quote is less than 40 words, use the following format for narrative citations. Jameson 2021 states that, quote, Moderna has a 94% effectiveness rate against COVID-19, end quote, and then the page number. And then use this format for a parenthetical citation. Notably, quote, Moderna has a 94% effectiveness rate against COVID-19, end quote, and then the full citation. Notice that whether you are using a narrative or parenthetical citation, the page number will go directly after the quotation. Now, the preference in most situations is to use paraphrasing frequently, direct quotes of less than 40 words sparingly, and direct quotes of more than 40 words very sparingly. But in the rare occasion that you do use quotations of more than 40 words, which are also known as block quotes, you're going to use this format for a narrative citation. Notice that the block quote is indented ½ an inch, and in this case, the page number comes after the period. For a parenthetical reference with a block quote, you'll put the full parenthetical citation, which includes the page number, after the period as well. So, those are the basics of in-text citations. Put this into practice, and APA formatting should be fairly straightforward for you. If you get stuck, you can build on this knowledge by taking a look at the APA website at apastyle.apa.org, and you can also come in and see us for help. My name is Peter Mosley from the Center for Academic Performance, and if you are a UNT Health Science Center student who needs help with APA citation or anything else that has to do with writing, please see the Center for Academic Performance website in the description below for information on setting up an appointment. There are also helpful links in the description for other resources, including helpful resources available through the Gibson D. Lewis Library. Thank you for watching.